Okay, we're here with the cast and the director of Frank, and I just wanted to ask you guys a little bit about how you guys met, how this started, where Lenny, you decided that this was your cast, and was that an in-person meeting or?
Well, so casting-wise, rather than the whole film, but once we got to a point where we thought we were in good shape with the script, I mean, we'd always been thinking about who we would like to have, and you just start kind of mulling it over and putting up lists, and I have to say that with the part of Clara that Maggie plays, Maggie was first choice, which is pretty great too, and we just, you know, you do what you do. It's a kind of cold world. You just send out the script and write a note and say, I think you're fantastic, I think you're perfect for this and we'd love you to do it. And Maggie, I think I'll hand over to Maggie because it was sort of a process then after that happened.
Well, I wanted to know, was she on the page? Was that Clara that we saw, was she on the page like that?
Well, I think the script was, I mean, really, really good and really, really unusual. But when I first read it, I didn't understand it. I think I just didn't get the tone of it. I read it and I was really compelled by it, but I didn't get it. And I met Lenny and we talked about it and I decided not to do it. And then, and like I said, no, it was done, it was over, you know? And then like maybe 3 weeks later, I just couldn't stop thinking about the movie. I read it again, like I just pulled it back up and took it out. I never ever do that. I never do that. And I read it again and I thought, I have to do this actually, I was wrong. And it's not usually the way with me. I usually just know. So then I called Lenny and I said, actually, please, can I still do it? Is it too late or can I do it? And he said, yes, you can. And then Clara, I mean, Clara was always really awesome on the page, but I think whenever an actor comes in and plays something, it changes. And I think really good directors, in my experience, choose people who are somehow different than the person that's written. So it's not like an obvious matchup. You know, you don't want to have like chocolate ice cream with chocolate syrup. You know, you want something that's like the sand to make the pearl. You know, you want something a little different. So I do think I butted up against what was on the page in some ways, but I kind of always do. And I think that mix of what's on the page and then who I am makes, you know, what the character ultimately becomes.
And for you, for Don?
I read the script and, you know, just thought it was really weird and just really wanted to be a part of it. So I just told my people that I work with, I was like, please get me this job, get me this job. And I just hounded him for a while. And then once, you know, I had the conversation with Lenny and we were moving forward with it, then it was just a matter of throwing ideas for the character at him and him kind of saying, okay, you know, no on that, but yes on that, and then coming back to him and asking him more things about the character. So I feel like we kind of built that. I mean, the character was on the page, but as far as what we did with, ran with it, it was the two of us just kind of throwing ideas back and forth to each other and kind of building the character together.
And I wondered as I was watching it if you guys lived together during filming in kind of that little pod of cabins that you had.
We didn't live there because it was freezing, and it was also really hard to get to. It was in the middle of the Irish winter. It was kind of freezy, muddy, yucky, sleety, but we did live pretty near it, and well, you do live, you know, whatever the sleeping arrangements on a shoot, you do effectively live together through the course of making a film. It's a really intimate time. It's very intense. Everybody's under a bit of pressure, but everybody has a common goal. It's a funny form of life, but it's a really intense one. And actually, the relationships that exist during a shoot, they do sometimes in a way that is obvious to see, sometimes in quite subtle ways. They do actually appear on screen, you know. And so the way in which we all related to each other does that. I can see things in the film that I recognize from the relationships that developed over the course of making it. We reversed the order of the film in the shooting, so we started in the States, and then we moved back to Ireland, even though the story takes a different journey. And so all of the Irish crew and British crew were away to start with, and so that meant that we were all, you know, there was a pretty intense kind of interior to the whole thing.
I think also the reason it looks like we lived there, because I think it does look like we lived there.
It really does.
Is because, you know, it was a tiny movie. We were shooting down like a really, really long, super muddy road. There weren't trailers. There wasn't anywhere to go back to. You know, like the hat I wear in the movie, actually, I brought with me because it's my hat, and I bought it in in Albuquerque, and then I just didn't want to take it off because it was freezing, and so it's Clara's hat in the movie, and you know, it's like that. It's like we didn't have anywhere to go. If we're dirty, it's because we were dirty. It's, you know,
and the hotel that we all were staying in, there was nothing around that anywhere. So essentially, we were living together. We just had our own rooms.
Yeah, exactly. So
And we spent a lot of time with each other, like after work, and you know, so yeah, it felt like a lot like we were living together.
we'd also, in the States, it was a more, you know, it was slightly more like you'd imagine. You know, there was a reasonable size unit base, there were trailers and stuff, but actually it wasn't that kind of movie. Nobody was precious. I don't think you sign up to a film like Frank if you expect to be kind of, you know, you don't. It's not a kind of full limo service experience that you're going to have.
I remember eating candy bars, which I never do, because it was like the only snack that we could get. They had those little, they had like Irish candy bars. Some were pink and some were purple, and sometimes people would have them in their pockets and like hand them out to us. There was, you know, it was like that. It was like we were hungry and cold and dirty.
And that was your crafting?
That was our craft.
That was our craft.
I did want, at some point you do get to put on Frank's head. And I kind of wanted a perspective of what life was like in that head. Obviously, Michael Fassbender wore it a great amount of time. And can you kind of take us inside? Was it heavy? Was it?
No, the hat was super light. It had a shell on the inside that kind of fit on like a helmet, you know, that went around like that. You couldn't really see out of it. I mean, if you wanted to, it had a big gap at the bottom. But if you wanted to walk, you kind of had to look down and not forward to just make sure you weren't running into anything. So, I mean, I was surprised I was blown away at how much he did with the hat on. Because when I was wearing the hat, you know, and I'd wear it some days just to see what it was like. And it's amazing how well he moves around. And I think the helmet kind of created some of his body language. I noticed when I put it on, some of his body language, I think it's kind of started with the helmet. Now, don't quote me on that, but
well, the safety that his character sees, I think that he maybe did.
Well, he said, you know, that he felt quite liberated by it because as an actor, it's a very unusual, but it does allow you to play with all sorts of things that I think, you know, that are fun in this particular scenario. But just masks in general are really interesting things, and people have always been fascinated by what they do to a figure in a room.
Did you anticipate that? Did you anticipate when you decided to create that being his disguise?
Yeah, I mean, there was a big leap of faith involved. I mean, we always used to joke that like you could get to day 3 of the rushes and then, you know, look at each other and go, well, the head doesn't work, you know, and that would be a pretty tough situation to find yourself in. But the sense was that it would. I just had a strong feeling that this character would live in a kind of partially in a kind of half puppet, half real way that's just unusual. And I think the other thing about it is it just shows how much of our sense of what's happening for a character is kind of dictated by the grammar of the scene, you know. So and that idea has been there from the beginning of cinema, that you can cut the same close-up with 2 different points of view, and you'll read each close-up differently. So, and it's the same with the head. You kind of, you know, as Maggie said in the Q&A, you sort of forget he's wearing it, and you sort of see a person, and you kind of even see expressions in the face, which is part of what I think makes it
even
interesting.
when he's not telling you the expressions. And how is it for you to be here at Sundance with Frank?
It's great. I mean, you know, it feels like a Sundance film, and I think when we were, you know, getting through the cutting process, myself and the producers and everybody involved felt that this would be the place for it. So, you know, and they'd been tracking it because obviously it does have a series of flavors and markers that go kind of, that scream Sundance. And then we were just very happy that when they saw it, they liked it enough to take it and have given it a really lovely, they've placed it in a really kind of good way in the festival. So very happy.
And you guys are comfortable here as well, obviously. Maggie, you've been here. And, I mean, both of you have been here.
Yeah, I've been here a couple times, but not necessarily just for the festival, just to come up here and ski and fish.
I feel like I mean, I haven't been here in a long time, but I feel in some ways like I owe my career to Sundance. I mean, they, when I was first starting, picked up movies of mine that were really out there, like Donnie Darko was pretty out there, Secretary, Sherry Baby. You know, those were movies that might have had no life and not been seen by anybody, and Sundance picked them up and gave them a life and gave them an audience. And so I feel like I feel really grateful to them, and like I think it's a great place for Frank. It's also a really unusual movie, you know, that has to be kind of put out into the world in the right way with the right frame around it. And
Absolutely.
I think Sundance can do that.